Well, hello and welcome. I think Ghana and make it happen. Now, you may think it's just a campaign slogan, but for me as a Ghanaian, I think it's a needed prophecy that has to happen if we are going to survive. Now, 2014 has been really challenging for the country. I mean, once upon a time, we're hovering around, 15% growth in our GDP. Now we are targeting and hoping to just do 3.9. What else is going to bring us back to a normal growth other than investment in the right direction? And that's why I'm here to talk to the lady who is going to champion this cause to make it happen. Marina Treble, CEO of GIPC, Ghana Investment Promotion Center, to see how we can all collectively make this dream happen. My name is Nana Ansakwa, and this is PM Express, and thank you very much for welcoming us to your office.
Good to have you here, Nana.
I envy you and I don't envy you. First of all, congratulations, because you really championed your office. You're the first lady, the youngest one, and indeed, you've caused a storm. Even if it's not happening, we are talking, we are debating about it, and I'm here. That alone is something, so congratulations.
Well, we thank God for everything we're able to do.
Now you have to change the minds of 25 million people to believe in themselves. Now that, I don't envy you.
Well, I mean, I think that to a very large extent there's so much untapped human potential in our country, and I think the natural position for any investment promotion officer is to think optimistically. So every challenge really presents a new opportunity, and that's the context in which we're proposing to reach out to the domestic business community. We really think it's important to strike the right balance between attracting quality foreign direct investment, but also ensuring that the domestic business community receives the priority it needs. So we're quite excited about what we're seeking to do this year. A change in mindset is a change for the future. And I think every business person, whether they're Ghanaian or non-Ghanaian, will recognize the opportunities. It's our job as an investment promotion center to make those opportunities tangible to the business community. And as I said, ensure that everybody feels they're part of the process.
See, we have a culture where foreigners who invest in here, basically they take their terms and scoop maximum profits, repatriate their capital, and there's you coming saying, no, hold on, we can't work it this way anymore. Let us do it the same way we do in your country. I'm sure they're going to sit back and say, no, that's not good investment ground anymore. We're not.
Actually, Nana, I think that it's produced the opposite effect, and I'm very quick to say it's not necessarily a GIPC intervention. This has been the policy at direction. If you consider the fact that perhaps what pertained more than 2.5 decades ago in terms of investment promotion cannot apply in these current circumstances. We've achieved middle income status. We're trying to progress to upper middle income status, and that requires a new form of legislation that really looks at what we need to develop. We're seeking to create jobs, but we want those to be jobs that create a ripple economic effects on our communities, on businesses, etc. And so it's really important that we change the language style to discuss more partnership opportunities, as opposed to where previously we were looking for every kind of investor across every kind of sector. So there's a very big focus on the strategic investing community, both Ghanaian and non-Ghanaian, and there's a big difference. Because we're looking for high impact investments that will address some of the challenges we've had with ease of doing business. For instance, infrastructure has become a very important sector, and we are targeting specific kinds of investor who, quite frankly, have the technical capabilities and also the financial wherewithal. They're not far away from understanding that the regulatory terrain will obviously have to evolve to suit our current circumstances. So they haven't been surprised in our interactions to hear that our legislation has changed. We are now looking more at ensuring that when a major investor is coming into the country, one, they can demonstrate maximum utilization of local resources, filling in on the skills transfer, that's very important, so that we're spreading the knowledge as the investment is rolling out, and also that we can demonstrate that in the medium to long term it will translate into other types of business opportunities. So the innovation and the entrepreneurship is very important. So I think as we've spoken more about these needed changes and the reality that no country is static, the international business community is beginning to respond. That's why you're seeing so many business delegations, and they're pretty large business delegations of serious business players coming into the country. Our goal is to make sure that the Ghanaian business community is ready to meet them, engage meaningfully, to ensure equity in the kinds of partnerships, so nobody feels like they're being taken advantage of. That's why, as GIPC, we've sought to rebrand ourselves as the prosperity partner. We're there to support the international business community through the investing process and facilitate it, but those services are equally available to the domestic business community. And that's where there's been a bit of a gap. So we're very excited about this campaign to bridge that.
I was just going back to the campaign. I mean, Think Ghana, make it happen.
Yes.
What do we have to do to help you? Or to help ourselves?
Well, I mean, I think as Ghanaians, obviously everybody's involved in some sort of economic activity. People are actively looking for job opportunities. But there's much to be said for targeting the entrepreneurial business community. And the concept behind the Think Ghana, Make It Happen campaign is that for the domestic entrepreneurial business community, we're saying that you understand this terrain, you're from here. So when you're thinking about investing, you're thinking about Ghana, because you understand the terrain, you understand the dynamics, you'll know how to overcome those hurdles. We are there to support you, and you will make it happen. By the same token, the message to the international business community is that as you're thinking about investing in Africa, think about Ghana. If you're thinking about Ghana, think about partnerships. If you're thinking about partnerships, you can approach the prosperity partner in GIPC who will work with you to identify appropriate opportunities, the right kinds of interactions, ensure that you understand the legal and regulatory environment, and you also understand the desire of the country, yes, to see you profitable as a business, but also to be able to ensure prosperity for our own people through the development that comes with these investments. So I think the possibilities and the opportunities are there. I'm very particular about taking an optimistic view because it's very easy to look at all of the challenges and assume that nothing can be done. But I think that Ghanaians are just as astute as anybody else anywhere you'll find in the world. It's up to us to extract the best and showcase that. Not because we need to run away from or pretend that the challenges don't exist, but really embrace the opportunities so that as we're facing the challenges, we're becoming better and better at responding to them. Of course, not just for now, but for generationally, because those are the terms in which you think about investment promotion. We think in 5, 10, 15, 20-year blocks of time. So it's quite an exciting proposition. I'm keen because I really think we have a responsibility to reach out to the domestic business community. There's so much incredible innovation, so much entrepreneurial drive, particularly in the young Ghanaian business community. And that's really where the base of the next set of business opportunities
I was going to get there, but with the new investors that we are inviting in, and you mentioned strategic, what areas are we excited for people to come in now? What are our priority areas?
Well, obviously, number one would be infrastructure, and power is definitely top of mind for everybody. I mean, certainly having had the privilege to come in to serve this role in 2013, most of my time has been spent on attracting quality investments in the power sector. I think it's important to appreciate that we have to look beyond targets that are set for the next 5-year period. As an investment promotion center, we actually need to look further than that into the next 10-year period so that we're ahead of the investments because they're not going to roll out in 1 year. And so we're very keen to ensure that the power sector gets the right quality in the balance between the traditional forms of power that we're all used to and then some of the renewable energy solutions that will help to bridge that 5,000 megawatt target that everyone's been talking about. Additionally, obviously, will be roads, our transport systems, our port facilities. So there have been quite a few major investments on that side.
Well, let me stay on the power.
Yes.
Now, I'm trying to feed off your optimism. Now, I bring in an investor to invest in the power.
Yes.
Now, it's well known that we are not paying enough as users of power.
Right.
And therefore, if I came in to invest, you won't pay me enough for me to yield my profit, which obviously is my main aim, is profit. So where then does your optimism comes in? Because the average Ghanaian is not paying enough.
Well, I mean, I think it's a couple of things. First of all, internally, we have restructured in a way that allows us to be very specific in supporting the investor. So we have schedule officers in our investor services function and our research function who only focus on the energy sector. So every investor who comes in knows that they will have somebody who will hold their hand, walk with them to the Energy Ministry, engage with the VRA, look at what challenges they may be having in negotiating power purchase agreements, which is always something that's a big ticket item for those investors. Who else they need to engage with, whether it's the Energy Commission. We will support them through the entirety of the investing process. So I think our optimism comes because we've had success interacting and engaging with the various other institutions and parastatals, so that when even they're faced with challenges, because we know there's an outcome we're looking for, as an investment promotion center, we can step in and support the process, not disregard or sidestep any of the procedures, but ensure that the face time that's required to complete the process in a timely fashion is executed. So helping the investor to understand the roadmap that they can anticipate for those kinds of big power investments is something that we do. And we also want the Ghanaian business community to know that for those of the stakeholders who are interested in the power sector, that there are opportunities to partner. And I've been quite surprised, and pleasantly so, at the number of Ghanaian business people who have partnered with international organizations and are bringing very meaningful investments in the power sector to bear on our current circumstances. So that's where the optimism comes up from. Because we've restructured internally to take a customer service oriented view, we are very quick to respond to the investors' challenges. And I think that with the kinds of collaborations we are having across the different sectors, it's not just power. Agriculture is a big ticket item for us. More than 60% of our population are involved in some form of agricultural activity. So we need to go a step further in the value addition chain. So it's not just producing crops and so on, but it's processing it. And so taking an integrated view of the kinds of investments that are needed means that, for instance, if it's a poultry industry, we need to be able to support the domestic poultry industry and look at their capacity currently, so that as we're seeking partnerships that are coming into the country, they understand that it's a full solution. It's growing the feed for the birds, it's processing the birds, it's processing the eggs, it's also ensuring that we're able to package it and make it available for domestic as well as international consumption. So there are policy things that will have to back up some of the work that we're doing. But again, the optimism is because of the quality of the interactions we're having. And I think it's our speed to market that has helped us to achieve a few successes. I mean, here's a number for you. Number one, for ease of doing business in West Africa. That's Ghana. And that's a position for 2014. We're very proud of it because it's taken a bit of time to work at engaging with the business community so that they feel like there's somebody to walk them through the process. And I think that optimism will continue to rub off as we work with the investors. They're business people. And
I'm sure the viewers will be absolutely shocked, thinking, really, Ghana? Ease of doing business, number one. How come? Everybody has their story of.
It's a World Bank report. It's not a GIPC report. But what's more important is not what we think as GIPC. It's how we address some of the existing perceptions, which are realities for the business community, that they really don't know what GIPC does. They haven't had the opportunity to interact with the center. So I'm really looking forward to some of the interventions, because we're rolling out this campaign through the entirety of the year to engage with the Ghanaian business community so that they know GIPC is not about foreign direct investment. It's about investments for Ghana, investments that translate into development. If the investment does not translate into development, we shouldn't be doing it, period. And so we really need to engage with them because they are also the most authentic ambassadors of doing business in Ghana. I would be far less believable than a business person who's actually real-time running his business, paying salaries, paying taxes, trying to innovate, trying to attract new customers. Those are the people we need to have speak. And that's why you'll notice in some of our investment missions, we collaborate very closely with the AGI, the Association of Ghana Industries, chambers, to make sure that the business community has that voice. And I think it is their experiences that are now translating into some of the shifts that we're seeing in that viewpoint about GIPC.
I'm going to take a break here, and then when I come back, I want to find out, in all this, are there any areas or any protection for the Ghanaian businessman? Because I come from Dubai with a loan of, what, 0.5 interest or probably zero. Here to build a hotel. You're here to borrow a loan at 35% interest to also build yours next door. And then we all have to serve the customer. How do we go? Stay tuned. Thank you very much for staying tuned. We're having a very important discussion with Mauna Trouble. Now, this discussion, if it succeeds, Ghana succeeds, believe it or not. As light as it may seem, if it succeeds, Ghana succeeds. And we are thinking Ghana, and we are making it happen. Just before the break, I was wondering, how do we protect our locals? Because you tend to borrow money locally at a very expensive price. The foreign investor coming in has also borrowed money at a much, much lesser price. And you need to compete with them. How do we help or protect the Ghanaian investor? I mean, do we tell the foreign, look, you have to borrow the money locally, or how do we protect them?
Well, I mean, there are two elements to this. I think we need to categorize our investment groups. We need to look at the small to mid-sized players, and then we also need to look at those who are engaged in big investment interventions and projects. Now, for the most part, obviously, for those big infrastructure projects, we would really like people to stay away from the domestic market and bring in their own financing. And that's something that we're actively promoting as we're looking at these kinds of big investment opportunities. Attendant to that is also a view that the size of the investment, just in terms of the financial size and the scope and scale, does not necessarily predetermine that you are entitled to everything that we have to offer in terms of incentives. We need to be certain that there's maximum use of local expertise. It's very important that local resources are sourced from in-country as much as possible. We've certainly built our capacity in-house to monitor and track these investments as they're rolling out. So the commitments that the investors have made to maximize use of our local goods and services is applied and adhered to. I think we also have to look, as I said, at the SME business community, because that's another group. SME in Ghana is not the same as SME in some other parts of the world. And that, again, goes back to what I said about ensuring that we're building our capacity to engage with the international business community that's so interested in coming to Ghana. And in protecting those interests, as I said, one, we need to ensure that they themselves are aware of the services and the opportunities we can extend to them as they're rolling out. They themselves must also be aware of some of the requirements for the kinds of partnerships they would be looking at. So you have to have the right governance structures. Your accounting records need to be in place. You need to have good HR management policies. And that's appealing for a potential partner. So you step into the discussion about a partnership, even if you're an SME, knowing that you're bringing something to the table. You're not pleading and you're not begging because you bring expertise, local expertise to the table. And I think that's a separate sort of agenda. But if you're talking about things like specific sectors where, you've got vulnerable economic groups, there is some articulation in our legislation, I think it's clause 30, that talks about very specific areas that are only the preserve of Ghanaian citizenry. I know some people are of the view that it's not a big deal. I mean, if you say foreigners are excluded from the barbering saloons, from taxi services, sase wache, scratch cards, it's not much. But I think our position is that you have to look holistically at all that's being done. These are vulnerable groups of people in economic circumstances that you can't match even to an SME person. And so it's important important to articulate that. And as we evolve as a country, and I think that's the beauty of where we're going, and the international business community is seeing it, we're able to add on to that list where it becomes necessary and have the open public discussion. So as the local content legislation, for instance, has been articulated for the oil and gas sector, I can tell you now that local content philosophies apply when we're looking at big strategic investors. So we don't give away incentives and guarantees on a whim. We give them based on what's coming back, what's accruing to the country if we offer certain kinds of
Let me come with 2 points. Number one, with regards to what's reserved for the locals, i.e. sachet water and taxi driving and hawking and stuff like that. I mean, could we be daring enough to add maybe insurance and banking so that if I came in to be a banker, I have to partner with a Ghanaian?
But you go ahead and check, Nana. I mean, what's the equity representation in the banks that we have operating in the country? There's a requirement on Ghanaian representation at a minimum, as I understand it, is no less than 30%. So in the banking and financial services sector, you're seeing Ghanaian success stories, if I may use one example, Fidelity Bank, for instance. That's an exciting story to watch. I mean, if you look at some of the other financial services, this is why the sophistication of the Ghanaian financial services sector has been another pointer for the investing community. And it's not just the international, it's also the Ghanaian investing community. So there's a lot of expertise on that score. So that's why I said we have to take a holistic view, sector by sector, what's being done to ensure there's more local participation. And again, I guess that's why we have a very optimistic view. I was going to remark that at the GIPC board level, for instance, it doesn't matter whether you're bringing an investment of $50 million or it's just $10 million. We're still going to scrutinize it and have a look at what's accruing back to the country. Ghana's tax legislation covers quite a lot, but many investors, both domestic and international, don't know. The education is something that we're partnering with the Ministry of Finance to make the business community aware of, so that they see the benefit in the support that's being offered through the existing tax code. For anything outside of that, obviously it's going to go through a pretty rigorous process. But it's important that they are aware, so that there's no hesitation in making that final investment decision. And Nana, one other quick point is that it's important that we all think in terms of the investment, not from a per annum perspective, but in terms of what's going to be rolled out in phases. Many of the investments that we're seeing coming in are not investments that will happen in 6 months. It's going to take at least 24 months, perhaps it'll take 3 years at a minimum. And that's the context in which we have to think about the economic impact. If, for instance, an investor is coming to invest in the tourism sector, I mean, Ghana has been very successful positioning itself as a hub for access into West Africa. We need to have hospitality facilities to match the level of human traffic we see coming into the country. So investments in the hospitality sector, a hotel facility, for instance, is going to roll out in phases. Some jobs will be generated during the pre-construction phase. Other jobs will be created through the finishing stage, and then there'll be sustained jobs once the facility is up and running for an extended period of time. We've got great examples of some investments that have come through here, like Move and Pick, that now generate quite a number of jobs. And it's not something that is taking away from our economic circumstances. We need to look at, and I like to quote a soundbite from one of the hotel players in the country, who said that we need to market Ghana as a serious tourist product. In order to do that, we have to have the infrastructure. But to do that, we also need to ensure that we're drawing on the local expertise and the opportunities.
Local content, local expertise. As a nation, are we, human resource-wise, are we training enough? Because if somebody came now to build a gas plant, they probably would have to bring all the expertise from wherever they came in. So with regards to the law, they might not find enough welders, to weld the things together. So are we also positioning ourselves well enough so that if somebody comes, we can pick up our red flag and say, hey, local expertise, use me. Because otherwise, you know.
Well, that's right. I mean, you're absolutely right. And the reality is that, again, it's our responsibility as an investment promotion center to tell the investors that, look, we have very strong historical excellence in our vocational training institutes. And so it's easy. You cannot tell me that you will not be able to find welders who can do the work just as well as anybody else. And I think that that has translated into some of the changes that you've seen in the legislation when it comes to issuing immigrant quotas. I think as Ghanaians, we are becoming very clear on what it is we want. So you won't get by with asking for 100 immigrant quotas for many jobs that can easily be executed by Ghanaians. It is the monitoring and tracking that becomes extremely important. And I'm happy to say that in our interactions with the Ghana Immigration Service, we have very close working relationships with them, with the Ghana Revenue Authority, many of the other licensing authorities. That's exactly what we're seeking to do. Make sure that people are compliant. And so we are coming to invest. We need to ensure that you're using the local expertise. We have this community of vocational expertise that can support your investment. We need to ensure that even with an oil and gas plant, for instance, actually we have excellence in, for instance, the University of Mines at Takwa, producing incredible students who are graduating to be top of class in serving in that sector. So we've also got the community of expatriate Ghanaians who are coming back home with all of their experience and expertise. So we're actively making those things known to the business community. Obviously, as an investment promotion center, we don't jump into their operations, but there's no way anyone can say we are not aware. And that's why I said to you, it's been very important for us to take that customer service view as a center and make it known. So you have a schedule officer who's responsible for the oil and gas sector, and they will tell you right away, this is where you can seek some of the resources you're looking for in country. So there really isn't any excuse.
You know, there's been this perception that investment only favors foreign investors. Now, I think it's because of I don't know if it's as a break in communication or lack of education, but I mean, I spoke to a very well established company who didn't know that if they'd registered with you and they import certain items, they get, you know, tax exemption.
That's right.
You know, they did not believe me. You know, I had to go to a lot of arguments. Look, it's true. Send your guys there. You know, who do I see? I said, I don't see anybody. Just walk in.
Exactly.
So where's the break coming from?
I mean, I think, you know, as I said, somebody else's perception is another person's reality, and we've had to embrace the reality that the perception is out there that for some reason foreign investors get a better service than Ghanaian investors, and that's one of the big ticket items we are seeking to address with the Think Ghana, Make It Happen campaign. As we reach out region by region, and we're seeking to engage with the business community, we reinforce the awareness that these services are there, that this is what we do as an investment promotion center, and that actually it's Ghana first before everything else. And so as we are interacting with them, as we're collaborating with the Ghana Revenue Authority, with Ministry of Finance, with the various sector ministries, as we're talking about investments in each of the regions, we'll be able to make it known that, yes, we are aware that this has been the viewpoint, but we're here to address that. And that's why I said to you that we're targeting entrepreneurs who really know what they're seeking to achieve. And we're making it known to them that we are there to support them through the process. My expectation and that of the team is to look at where we are at the beginning of this process and set ourselves some benchmarks. Clearly, the awareness that we would like is not there. But 6 months down the track, we can have this conversation again and look at the stats. So it's not, you know, Mawana said so. It's the Ghanaian media, it's the Ghanaian business community coming to an awareness of what the service offerings here are. And I think that's the direction that we'll continue to go. So yes, the perception is there. It's obviously it's not true. Our law requires us to offer in services. But the GIPC is not just about incentives. I always keep emphasizing that. It's not just about incentives and guarantees. What are your business challenges? What are the issues that you're facing as you're trying to roll out your investment? Perhaps you have a question about the legal and regulatory environment, the permitting requirements. Perhaps you'd like to arrange to meet with a government official, a policy maker, to discuss this. I mean, we have every quarter CEOs breakfast meetings, and we invite policy decision makers to come and speak to and engage with the Ghanaian business community. So there's quite a lot that's going on, as I said, but that is a perception, and we are dealing with it. That's what the Think Ghana, Make It Happen campaign is about.
Another thing which will affect investment is the transparency report and the perception report, and it comes and we're always hanging like 20 from the bottom, 30 from the bottom. I mean, whose responsibility is it to make sure that we're somewhere in the middle or probably at the top?
Well, I mean, I think it's a very much a collective responsibility. Our experience engaging with the business community, both domestic and international, what business people like is stability. They like fiscal stability. They want a certain level of policy certainty so that when they're rolling out their investment, they know this is the framework within which I can execute, and therefore I can anticipate this is what is going to happen. When it comes to issues of corruption and how it is perceived, what is important for us as Ghanaians to be able to demonstrate is that there is a process in which the systems are becoming more robust. The controls are much stronger. And so it's not very easy to get into that sort of situation and go away free. If you ask me, looking at the quality of our media and the media discourse and the level of freedom that is often applied in the Ghanaian circumstances, I'm not sure that's something that applies in every other African context. If you consider some of the things that have happened quite recently, I mean, I certainly will have to speak about President Mahama. If you look at our history, I think he's the single president who has subjected himself to such high levels of scrutiny, so much so that he's required to act on reports that are put forward, issues that are raised in respect of officials that he himself has brought into particular roles. So if you look holistically at those things, the evidence is there that Ghana is not just sort of sitting back and allowing things to continue, but trying to address those by putting more systems, more controls, more structures in place. Obviously, it's a challenge for everybody, and that's why I said it's a collective responsibility. Every Ghanaian, every non-Ghanaian has the right to say no to any request to engage in an activity that's outside our laws. And they should feel free that there is recourse in addressing that if those issues are brought to the attention of the leadership. And so that's a responsibility on the side of, let's say, the customer, if you will. There's also responsibility on the leadership side to ensure that the systems work. I think as an investment promotion center for us, it's very important that we're very clear on our processes. So those are some of the things that I think will help to address those challenges, because the international reports on corruption in and of themselves, I don't think always give that additional perspective, that it's not that everything is all bad and that nothing's being done, but we need to be able to tell our own story and create our own narrative.
I'm going to take a break here, and then when I come back, I want to go back, because for Mauna to succeed, it's like everyone has to play their part, especially the banking. You know, if I went in a bank and I said, give me money for 15 years because I was going to build a dam, they'll probably call me a psychiatrist and say, look, this is money. But if I said, look, give me the same amount of money, I'm bringing in rice and I'll bring you your money in 2 weeks, I'll be the best customer. Stay tuned. Thank you very much for staying. Think Ghana, Make It Happen. And I'm talking to Mauna Trevor, who is behind this dream that we have to all collectively support and make it happen. But just before the break, I was just wondering about our lending system in Ghana. You know, Mauna was saying that if I borrowed money, you know, X amount of millions for 2 weeks, the bank would say fine. the same amount of money, but it's going to take longer, even yield a lot more money, I wouldn't get it, you know. But that's the sort of investment I hear you talk about. Forget about it annually. It could take 3 years. It could take, you know, and the serious ones normally take a longer time to build and even longer to recoup.
Right.
But we don't have that sort of structures.
Well, I mean, I think it's a couple of things, Nana. First of all, there's a lot more innovation in financing investment projects and opportunities than perhaps had previously been known. What we've tried to do as an investment promotion center is to tighten our collaborations, for instance, with the Ghana Stock Exchange. One thing that I think a lot of Ghanaians and non-Ghanaians don't know is that there's actually quite a lot of capital in country, Ghanaian owned, that they can potentially source, and it's not necessarily in the form of a loan from a banking institution. The Ghana Stock Exchange has been very forthright in their collaborations with us. We as an investment promotion center know that there's no way you can be effectively talking about investment promotion if you're not pushing investments in your capital markets. There has to be some cash liquidity in the system for people to access. And so, when I talked about our CEO's breakfast meetings, where we've invited angel investors and venture fund organizations to come and speak to the business community about some of the alternative financing options that are available. We're obviously actively looking at strategic investments in the capital markets. The stock exchange itself has also come to speak at our CEO's breakfast meeting and talk about some of the other financing options that are available. But again, for the Ghanaian business community, there are certain systems and structures that are pretty basic that we have to have in place in order to access those funds. And I think there's a mindset change there that also has to happen. The other element, I think, is also business culture unique to us as Ghanaians. We tend, as we've seen in the center, not to necessarily want to partner with fellow Ghanaians, if you will. There are lots of opportunities on that score, but if from a governance perspective you founded the company, you're the chair of the company, you're also the chief operations officer, the governance issues will prevail. So it's important that we build some of the capacity to take away some of those roadblocks or red lights, if you will. When they're approaching the bank, when you're approaching the financial institution, there's consistency in your cash flows so that when they're giving out loans, it's not so much a matter of, well, they don't want to give us loans, but you're actually a credible partner for those banking institutions. So we don't want to take away from the fact that they are also there to offer a service, but it's really important that we push to build the capacity so that everybody has fair opportunity to access all of these different products. So again, obviously there are a number of challenges. We have to have more fiscal stability. I think that there's been much said about the inclusion of the IMF in our current economic history. But it's the structure and the systems behind the structure that will allow the investors to say, this is the level of certainty I have that if I invest at this time, these are the profits and these are returns I will recoup.
The other thing, which is turning Ghanaians away from Ghanaian product, personally, maybe I may be wrong, I don't even believe it's necessarily the quality, but it's finishing. Yes. That's, you know, appealing yes. to the eye business.
Yes.
Is there any, I don't know if it's a campaign or revolution to tell artisans and people who finish products yes. to say, look, just finish it a certain way. And yes. I mean, because one of the things we buy from China will last 3 days, yes. but we still buy it because it's just finished well.
Yes.
I mean, how and where do we start from?
Well, you know, one of the things that we've said as we've been invited to support the Made in Ghana campaign is that, look, Ghanaians are like everybody else in the world. They want a quality product, something that can compete on a global stage, but they also want it to be value for money. Those are the singular two most important things. You cannot ask Ghanaians to buy Made in Ghana products because they're made in Ghana by Ghanaians. The first thing is that it has got to be a value proposition. Value for money, it can compete globally, and it costs less. Then you can add on the additional caveat that, and when you patronize Made in Ghana goods, you're also creating and sustaining jobs at home. So you're absolutely right. One of the things we will have to continue to do, if you're familiar with our Ghana Club 100 series, is to project and promote those Ghanaian companies that are producing exceptional products and services. And there are quite a number of them. That's what Club 100's history has been about. How do we ensure we showcase corporate excellence in Ghana? There are people who are innovating, they are creating new products and services, new technology. That information needs to get out there. And as we continue to reinforce these brands that are really growing exceptionally. I mean, nobody can take away, for instance, in the financial services sector, from the amazing story of UT Bank. And for me, those are the kinds of things that we want to be articulating. Perhaps in the SME community, for instance, I can tell you personal stories, interactions that we've had going region by region, because every year we have what we call regional sensitization tours. We go to each region, meet with the business community, look at what products and services they're producing, and work with the Standards Authority to be aware of the certification. You'll be surprised at the quality of the packaging. You will see packaged rice produced in Ghana, and you will believe that it was packaged outside the country. You will see smoked fish that's been packaged so professionally, and it's by small business people who are trying to do something different. I recently saw in one of our supermarkets tomatoes that have been packaged, and it's produced in Ghana. I mean, people are seeking to rise to the occasion. It's our responsibility to promote that. However, as I said, we have to be sure that these are products that are of a certain quality and that deliver a proposition. Then we also add on that when you patronize, you're creating a job at home.
So I was just going to say, I mean, we have Club 100 with the UT banks in there. Now we have the Club 1 Million, where we have the Kinche weavers and the walking stick weaver. And you can tell that he had the idea. The design is fine, but it's just not perfect. I mean, it's just crooked here where he could have easily, you know, sandpapered it off.
He doesn't have all the sophisticated tools, all the sophisticated technology. So what can we do as an investment promotion center, as we're looking for potential interest in the manufacturing sector? And that's actually where we've seen the most investment for 2014. We'll seek to attract investors who are interested in sharing the technology and the expertise, so that as they're reinvesting in the country, they're building capacity of the Ghanaian business community, the cane weaver, the tailor or seamstress who needs to do the finishing of the shoulder of the suit better, so that his product is more appealing. Those are things that we're actively pursuing as we are attracting the investors. So one of the elements of the Think Ghana, Make It Happen campaign is to build that capacity so that you can produce a product or a service that can compete globally but meets the requirements locally.
Well, are we also the gateway to Africa, gateway to West Africa? Are we still the gateway, and you know, what's in the house once you enter the gate?
Well, I mean, I think traditionally when you enter a Ghanaian home, people will ask you to sit down, they'll offer you water, they'll ask you what your mission is. We've taken the viewpoint that as we showcase Ghanaian culture and the way we do things here, it's also important that we articulate that we know what we're looking for. So you can state your mission and then we'll meet you halfway. What are the things that you are interested in? We know what we're looking for, and so we're targeting. That's why our missions are very focused. We don't really do so many big conferences and exhibitions. Nothing gets done. We ask for roundtable meetings with investors who, quite frankly, can carry the day and understand the new paradigm. I keep emphasizing that, because wherever we go, the first thing I'm going to say is, if your investment does not translate into development, we won't be looking at it. And that's an important statement, because it sets the tone. By the time the investor has made a decision to come to your roundtable meeting, they already see the opportunities. So it's for you to be very specific. We have the opportunity for you to invest in our railway infrastructure. That's a big long-term type opportunity. If you're an SME, we have members of the Ghanaian private sector business community who are here to talk about some of the partnership opportunities. So our focus has been very much on ensuring that we are articulating the development agenda through the sectors that we are targeting. I've talked about infrastructure, I've talked about agriculture and agro-processing, I've talked about the tourism sector as well. Just as important, the manufacturing sector, because you remember I said we need to have an integrated view of the kinds of investments we're pursuing. But it's just as important that as we're inviting all of this interest from outside the country, the domestic business community is also aware of the services. So we're really excited about this upcoming campaign, looking forward to a lot of feedback on how we can continue to build the capacity of the domestic business community, because in the end, it's about them.
I'm sure viewers watching, I mean, anytime you're talking investment and jobs, the job market needs a lot of boost.
Yes.
Both the educated class and the uneducated class just need a place where they can do their good 8 to 10 hours and go home. Right. The investments we are bringing in, 400 people and that's it. You don't hire anymore, and after 3 years it's done and you're laid off. I mean, are we looking at areas like clothing lines? Because that's where you need hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, yes, stitching things together. Yes. Maybe cotton fields, or so, I mean, are we looking at those areas? Because
Nana, you'll recall that much earlier in 2014, halfway through 2013 into 2014, there was a big investment mission with a group of Mauritian business people, along with government officials from Mauritius. They have a very long experience with big manufacturing, clothing and textile type investments. It's something they've done in their country for a very long time, and it was one of the very specific assignments I was given by His Excellency the President. The outcome of that is the view that Ghana can position itself, because, as I said, we have a lot of experience with vocational training institutes. Those who produce garments can join these manufacturing facilities. The cost of doing these things in some of the traditional locations in Asia and some places in the Middle East no longer apply. And so places like Ghana can potentially pick up off of those opportunities. That's why, as I said, the manufacturing sector has been a big part of our focus, because, as you said, that's where the jobs become more numerous. Agriculture and agro-processing is another important area. So whenever we are looking at agriculture investments, we are looking at not just the outgrower farming community, but the jobs that can be created as a result of agro-processing as well. So we add on those figures, and then it's sustained investment that's translating into sustained jobs. And I think that's the direction that we really have had to go. I think, as I said, if you'll notice, we've been very circumspect when we are talking about FDI numbers. And we do so because it's important not to think about FDIs just in terms of that annual figure. Oh, in 2013, it was 3.69 billion US dollars. And now in 2013, as we're approaching the end of 2014, we haven't rounded up on our final quarter figures. We've fallen behind, and we don't know what's going to happen when we add on the figures for the last quarter. I'm always quick to emphasize that you have to look at things in the context of each sector and what the impact has been, because these things are rolled out in phases before you run commentary on whether or not the investment has been meaningful. If you look at some of the things that have occurred in terms of investments across the sectors that I've talked about, I don't think we can necessarily say nothing has happened. It is important that we sustain it. Sometimes, especially when there are other fiscal considerations, investments will definitely slow down. And that's something that we obviously experienced in 2013. Now we're looking to speed up the momentum, rebuild the enthusiasm, and that's why the service provisions that we offer become very important.
Well, I mean, this new spirit you're bringing into investment, which is every well-meaning Ghanaian will support it. But then what happened to the old deals? I mean, sometimes I sit back and wonder, I mean, who signs a gold deal and said, I'll take my share in money, or signs an oil deal and say, I'll take my share in money? I mean, who does that? But that's what, our fathers before us have done, So going forward, do we go back and rewrite some of the old rules and say, listen, this cannot be done? Or there's going to be two deals where those who came in first, milk of the state, and those who come in new play fair?
Nana, I think that it's two things. First and foremost, every contract has a period of time after which it elapses. So you have an opportunity, if you think that things are not as they should be, to go back and revisit. I think it's very important as an investment promotion center to take a forward-looking view. Because what we really don't want is to communicate dissonance. Whenever we say this is a country that respects the rule of law, appreciates regulations, and doesn't go outside of the terms of contractual arrangements, it's an important statement that we all have to support. Now, having said that, the expectation is also that we will also subject every kind of arrangement to the level of scrutiny it requires. So, yes, I mean, we can take a retrospective view of what perhaps didn't happen right previously, but now we're in a new paradigm. And that is coming across very strongly. I mean, you will appreciate the level of discourse about local content in the oil and gas sector. It's precisely because we have the benefit of having seen the experiences of other West African countries and the challenges that they had because there wasn't enough transparency and equity in understanding how the resources that were going to be generated from the oil and gas sector would be applied to continue to transform the country. Ghana has had that benefit, and so we've been quite upfront and quite clear. This is how the resources are going to be applied. There's so much public attention on it that really, as I said, those controls are already there. So yes, obviously, historically, things may not necessarily have gone the way we want, but we also don't want to be seen as a country that abrogates contracts and, because we're not happy with it today, we've decided to change it. That also does not send the right certainty message. So it's a collective effort, but I really think as Ghanaians, it's really important that we take the balanced view. As I said at the beginning, yes, the challenges are there, but how do we take them and turn them into opportunities?
Thank you very, very, very much. As the accounts will say, those that the animals have already eaten, they're gone. And what is left, let us guard it. And that's what Mauna is asking from you. Help her to guard what is left. But thank you very much. That was very insightful. And as I said, tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again. Thank you for watching.